Upper Room podcast here at the church, the Light Church, and just going over the message that Josh preached was over pride. So just talking over things that we kind of maybe have seen in our life, seen that we need help with, or maybe that I don't know, like the best way to say it is like ways that we've had to combat pride in our life, and maybe with our faith and spiritually. So I guess the first question would be like, for y'all, what ways have y'all seen y'all's pride impact your relationship, like, or your spirit walk? That's what I would say, like your relationship with Christ. Is there any ways that y'all have seen pride impact that in any kind of way?
Thinking that I can handle everything on my own, every time.
Okay. Yeah.
I think as men we probably struggle with that a lot. Men in general, but you want to handle everything. You want to be the fixer of all the problems, and so you just try to just keep a lid on it, not let anybody know what's going on in your personal life, and not really go to God for the answers. Just kind of try and fix everything on your own.
I think a lot of people are raised that way too, though. Like I'm just thinking about my family alone, but like it wasn't something where you'd be like tell anybody your problem, but letting it is almost seen as a sign of weakness. When it's actually the opposite. Whenever you're taking things to God and taking what you're having problems with to Him, so because He's ultimately the one who's gonna want to help guide you and hear from the Holy Spirit on it. But I just remember being on like talking, like I would never be like, I don't know, hey brother, hey, actually my actual physical brothers, like be like, hey, I need you to help me with this. No, I wanted to show them like, hey, I can do this on my own. Like,
got it.
I don't need help doing this. Like let me do this myself. So as far as that goes, like with spiritual walk, like I can say the same thing. Like I was, if I ever had anything wrong, like that could be mentally, or that could be me trying to grow in my faith. And definitely whenever I started my walk with Christ, I wasn't necessarily seeking guidance from people in the church, or like trying to figure out, hey, what are you doing to grow in Christ? I was trying to figure it out on my own. So that was making it pretty hard. That's why I was a slow learner for sure.
Probably being a provider, being prideful in that. I mean, it's the first thing that any man you meet is going to say, what do you do for a living? And so I feel like the worldly part of us is proud of being a provider and providing for our families, and not being humble in that regard, to where you're not the provider for your family. We have a provider, and having to come to terms with that is tough for a lot of us. And so I think that pride really hits home in that aspect. And then also with like social media, the way the world is now, is being prideful and, I got 100 likes on this post, and that's what people base their social status and how they feel about themselves off of how many likes and shares they get, and it's not about that.
It's so easy to show. Yeah, I guess that's a part of, you could say it's maybe a part of pride too, but it's so easy to show when people get a glimpse of on social media is like the good. It's always like, oh, here's my photo with my family, but like the majority of the time we're actually like kids are running around the background, like we're not dressed up in this nice attire, just everything's running wild. But I think that's a sense of pride, because you want everybody to think that, oh, everything's nice, tidy, and neat.
You don't show the blood, the sweat, and the tears that goes into building.
Absolutely,
that. Yeah. It's the same thing with like a business. If you build a business up, you don't see, people will call things an overnight success. Like a music artist that comes out or whatever, overnight success. But you don't see like everything that went into that to build up to that point. Just little atomic, little micro wins that kind of built up to that point. And I hate social media for that reason.
Oh, one thing I will say, like it's kind of new to me. Like, how about like words of affirmation, like for people? Like I think if you're too caught up in yourself, it's super hard to tell people like, hey, good job. Like, hey, you're doing good. Like people might be getting beat down spiritually, might be getting beat down just by life. Like just tell them like, hey, if they did something good, or even if it's just like just to uplift them, that's something that you got to put yourself like step back and be like, hey, I don't need to hear this, but maybe they do. And I've seen that if you do that, it impacts people in such a positive way, being able to uplift them and being able to, and not be like, hey, I did this good job, won't you give me a pat on the back, because I did this good deed. Just those, I think it's one of those things that has kind of been lost that is coming back or needs to come back. It's like the deeds that go unseen, like what I mean, like the deeds that nobody knows about. Just like if you have something happen and you like change a tire for somebody or whatever it is, like those kind of deeds go a long ways, and people really look forward to them, and when they do happen, it's like a blessing from God for those people, for you to be there.
And don't let the right hand know what the left hand's doing. I mean,
yeah.
if you do go change that tire, don't take a selfie with them.
Yeah, right.
Look what I did today, and I think that's a big part of it is doing those things and helping those people out, and not putting it out there for the world to see, because then maybe to them that was something very big that you did for them, but
you're making it about yourself.
Yeah, and they may see it as, oh, well, they only did that to get the recognition, whereas no, they did that because they're showing God's love to me,
Yeah. That made me think of something like, I guess it's just a topic on husband and wife, or just relationship. Like, what do y'all think about this? Like, this is a little off topic, but it's a question to the side of pride. But like, if you do a good deed, what do y'all think about going home and sharing it with your wife? What do you think about that?
Sorry, you said doo-doo.
Do a good deed.
I'll share it with my wife all day
that's
long.
what I'm saying. Like, how do y'all feel like if you? That's something like I think that you tell, like, my wife comes home and tells me stories about like how like she's been teaching that day and things that went on, like sharing those things and lifting each other up in that. Like, I think that's important as well. So.
Absolutely, in your safe space, you know, that's not looking for words of affirmation more than just sharing with, your life with your significant other. I think that's key, especially for women. They're a lot of their love languages. It's not physical like ours. It's I don't want to say words of affirmation, but just talking things out
Quality
and whatnot,
time.
and quality time, and and so I think that's a key part of marriage.
Well, I think you have to tell your wife. I mean, because the Bible says that that the two become one, right? And so whenever you get married, I mean, you can tell that person that you're married to anything. I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, hey, like, if you're telling me something, like, you need to know that my wife's going to know it as well. Like,
right.
That's who's going to be sure. Like, hey, I'm going to tell you this, but I don't want anybody else to know. Like, well, one person's going to know, that's going to be my wife, because we're going to talk about it and we're going to talk it over, and no matter how big or how small it is. So, I don't know. I just was looking over the notes from Josh's message, but he was hitting on James 4:6, and I have it in the Message version. It says, "It is common knowledge that God goes against the willful proud. God gives grace to the willing humble." So, like, people he gives grace to those who are willing to be humble in, the areas of their life, like, that where most people would stand up and want to be proud and boast in those. So, that's kind of cool to think about. Like, it's super hard to hold your tongue. I believe that's a lot of danger can come from your mouth, and just speaking out of turn, or speaking highly of yourself. Might be off-putting to some people, but I just think being able to capture your words in those times is very important as well, because I just know how much destruction can come from, like, simple words coming off your lips, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
when I hear that verse, it's kind of a fine line for me with being prideful and being humble. You know, if you're blessed and God's blessed you with X, Y, Z, to want to share that with people and truly share it with people, not just share it with people.
Yeah.
To like if you get a new home and you wanna share it with people because it's what you've been blessed with, but you don't want to share it as in look at me. It's more of a come enjoy our blessings with us as opposed to sharing it as a look at what I got, you know. And so there's a very fine line with that as you know, with everything, you know, sharing your funds, you know, your fortune or whatnot, you know, if you can share that with people but not do it in a manner of, you know, being proud in that and look what I gave to the church. It's more of a I'm giving this to the church to share it with the church, you know.
And you know, and I think a lot of pride does unfortunately come with money, you know, like that's one thing that comes along with it because you get focused in on it. Like I'm someone who, my wife will tell you all day long, I'm someone who's fascinated over the numbers and the budget and stuff like that, and I get super wrapped up in it and trying to do all that. But I agree 100%. Like if you get a new house and you want to host small groups or you want to bring people together, that even means like, hey, have the t-ball teams over or whatever it is, like, and actually make it a community and everybody enjoy it, man. That's just kind of like, hey, I've been blessed by God for the ability to have this, and God's given me the opportunity. Let other people enjoy it with us, you know, that kind of community that, you know, same thing whenever people walk in the doors of the church, they come in, they're going to see Jennifer, Shelby, they're going to see Adam, you, and people standing out front just welcome them in. That same kind of hospitality goes for here at your house and everywhere else that you go. And shoot, we go to JR's and with y'all three, you know, y'all know somebody every time they come in, and I think that's kind of cool because everybody's just having good conversations and taking it wherever it goes. But I think that's a super cool mentality to have, and it's the right one to have. I was looking up Philippians 2:3. It says, "Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself." So, thinking that's one that whenever I can remember being like a high school kid, and I'll be like, you'll have that mentality where you're like, especially if you like play sports or whatever it is, you're always thinking like, man, I'm the best at this. I'm the best at this. I'm the best at this. Trying to one up everybody, and that even led into like me going into my career where I wanted to be the best at things. But I really had to take a step back whenever I started getting into a relationship with Christ, having to humble myself and be like, man, I'm no better than the next person next to me. They just have different abilities that God has given them, you know, and they have different things that God has put in their life. So, what do y'all kind of think about that? Have you ever had any place where y'all had to kind of step back and humble yourself, or maybe y'all seen things like where people are trying to impress others in life? Like, I guess like the biggest thing is, where is that impacted, or where have y'all seen it impact in different ways?
In the workplace.
In
my workplace, yeah. Because it's very competitive, being in sales, you know, and so you're competing against one another all the time, and there's always like a number one spot, you know, and second place is first place loser, and I hate losing. I mean, I hate to lose, and so I always try to be at that number one spot, and I'm proud to be there, you know.
When you have like Ricky Bobby, you're not first, you're last, like
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. And I like being up there. I like being at the top, you know. And so if I do lose, if I get knocked off the top peg, whether it be like for 1 week or for a month or for a year. Last year I was not number one for the year, which was like the first time that's ever happened, and it just got all over me.
It's like it's never going to happen again.
Well, it actually, I started to kind of take a step back and just, what does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
As long as I'm able to provide for my family,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's happy and cared for on this end, then why do I care what these people think?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the workplace for me.
And that's consuming. That's something that goes right along where I work. You know, I work. You do sales. My job's very close related to sales with recruiting, and everything's done on a number. You know, and everything's measured on a matrix based off those numbers. And like, hey, you have set you're supposed to do this much, and everybody sees everybody who exceeds it as the ones who went above and beyond. But the people who just meet their criteria are usually just like, oh, okay, good job.
They're getting by.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's definitely one that I've seen a lot of, like in the workplace for sure.
Do you see those people that go above and beyond walking around with a chip on their shoulder, or do you deal with?
Yeah, you'll see some, and you'll see others who aren't. You know, you'll see the ones who are super humble about it, and then you'll also see the ones who are like, man, this is where I live and breathe. You know, like not just 24/7. But I just think that I just know because the Bible tells me so. I just start thinking the old nursery rhyme. But anyways, but it just tells you to be humble in every situation. Like there's only thing that you can be proud and boast in is the Lord, is what it's saying. It was what it says. So, yeah. What about you? Where have you seen?
I mean, I just think in life in general, it's human nature to be proud, and it's really hard to like raising kids. Josh touched on it on Sunday with my kid's better than your kid, and stuff like that, and but that's something we also have to instill in our children is not to be proud in all the things, especially the material things. We came from a place before we were here that it was everything was pretty much based on the material things, and so it was a hard pill to swallow, because we weren't the upper echelons of the hierarchy there, and so our kids didn't have the coolest things, and so to be able for them to go through all the different experiences they have in life now to where we are today, I think has taught not only myself and my wife about being proud and being humble and all the the dichotomy there, but like for our kids to go through that as well, to really see what it is to be humble and to humble yourself, and make those choices to better yourselves in the end. So.
That's yeah, and there's also like I've looked at it this way, like God, I believe, and it says God equips certain people with certain things and certain abilities, and they have certain things that are God given. Like I know it comes a lot like whenever people think of sports, like think of like someone like Herschel Walker or somebody who's like Bo Jackson or something. You think of all these people who are gifted. And,
glad you didn't say LeBron.
Michael Jordan, yeah. I was talking about Emmitt Smith the other day, but anyways, you see that they're gifted, but I think that whenever you can take whatever God has gifted you with, because it's gonna happen. There's like I needed someone in my life whenever I was going through college algebra to help me out, if you know what I mean. I was not good at it, so just take whatever that gift is that God bestows upon you and use it to help others. Like for instance, like I think of Josh is super talented with his ability to do woodwork and stuff like that. So I've seen many times whenever he's used that ability to help other people. Toby, he's really good. I think about that. He's someone who likes to whenever you do something, he likes to really get excited and hype you up in that and whatever you did and tell you like, overly excite you and tell you how good of a job you did, and that makes people feel good, you know, like
Kind of like the hype man.
yeah. But man, the people,
Lil Jon. Yeah.
yeah. Hey, but people,
Very edifying.
but people need that, you know, like people. That's where those affirmations. People need to hear that, or they have a longing to hear that, and I think a lot of people are quick to just not say anything, or it's just awkward to come, hey, good job, you know. But people, that helps people come out and warm their relationship, and also and maybe step out and be a little bit better and well-rounded, especially as a church community is what I'm trying to think about right now, like small groups we're about to go in tonight. But there's going to be all kinds of topics that get like we're going to be talking just like we are now, and somebody's going to bring up something going on in their life, and then somebody else is going to try to bring something else up that mentors and helps them get through with that. And that's something I love about the Light Church, because the community and everything that we do here, it's just you're trying to uplift people, and I don't ever want that to ever go away. You know, like the how you try to help each person through their own situation, and I think having to humble yourself and kind of look through a lens that almost sees like, hey, I need to have some almost empathetic eyes for this and see what they're looking through, and have a little sympathy on the situation, and it helps you kind of help them get through that. But let's see what other topics we have going for the day. I had some quick notes over what Josh put down. Let me get to them real quick. Here's one that I was looking over. I was looking over like a few Psalms, and then I looked at Psalms 131, and it had everything to do with what Josh was talking over. And it's like one of the shortest Psalms that there is. But Psalms 131 says, "Lord, my heart is not proud, my eyes are not haughty." So that's pretty hard to say. "I don't concern myself with matters too great to answer for me to grasp. Instead, I've calmed and quieted myself like a weaned child who no longer cries for his mother." So I guess what that was making me think of is not to be haughty. So, you know, try not to be that prideful person. You know, so that's one that I've had to definitely change in my life, going from a young man to where I am now in my faith. I don't know how else that plays out, but like just doing going from someone who's super involved in the sports it's been super competitive all my life, and having 5 older brothers and all that, it's just being able to transition over to being humble and following Jesus in that way. That's what I've tried to do the best that I can. But you're always going to have places where you fall a little bit short, and that's okay. That's okay. Whenever it's okay. I guess the best way to put it is, if you do fall short, be around people who are gonna uplift you and try to help you with love. You know, not like, hey, you messed up, or you're being super proud. Just be like, where you see what right looks like. Man, I love seeing people do something a certain way, and it impacts me to do something that way. Have you ever been around somebody like that? Like I have friends that I can think of. I can think of a guy named Sergeant Victorino down in San Antonio. I was stationed down there as a readiness NCO at an infantry unit, and man, I can remember going out with him, and he was a guy who, you know, you'd see him, he'd be goofing around, kind of cutting up, but man, he was straightforward. He's like, I went out with him first time. You infantry crowd, you think, man, all these guys are wild now, kind of rough crowd, like anybody in like maybe like an old field crowd or something. But man, he was, never heard him curse, never saw him drink, never saw him do anything. I kind of had a talk with him. He's like, yeah, I hang around those people, but that's not who I am, and that's not what I believe. So I can remember being around that guy and being like, man, that guy makes me want to be a little more like that. So I think it's important to be around the right kind of people to keep you from being proud. Sometimes you can't, like with work, you can't really pick your crowd that you're around. That's one thing.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I guess that leads me into self-control. Like, I guess the Spirit kind of led me there. Like, how is it like what are some things that y'all do that help people whenever there's a whole bunch of proudness around you, uh, of a whole bunch of people stuck in their pride? What do you do to help with that self control in those situations?
I think that something my wife pointed out a while back was listening.
Mm-hmm.
Listening, I equate with being humble, to where when you're in a conversation with someone, don't be thinking about the next thing that you're going to say. Actually listen to what they're saying and kind of stand back and let them be proud, or let them vent or whatnot, but be humble in the not trying to one up with the next story or come up with your next rebuttal, but to truly listen to someone. And so that's something that she pointed out years ago, was in a conversation they would almost not even be done speaking before I was speaking again. And then she helped me realize that was in a sense me being proud, is always trying to go to the next part of the conversation and direct that conversation as opposed to just listening. And I think so in this conversation I kind of equate that to maybe that proud versus humble. I think humble I would equate with truly listening to someone.
Because the opposite of that, you're acting like you have all the answers, or you're trying to find the answers. I mean, I've done that a lot as well. I think that what I do, really all I've got to go off is work. I mean, because that's who I'm around pretty much all the time. My wife is super humble. She doesn't, and I'm not saying that as a joke. She really is. But she, so like if I'm at work and they'll come up to you and they'll be like, there he is, there's number one or whatever they say crap like that. And I don't know, we'll see what happens this week or whatever, and I just try to kind of not really feed into that. That's really the only thing that I've got that I can say that I do.
I think as a society, we've also had I've noticed that a lot of people have a hard time taking praise or a compliment. Whereas, oh, you look good today.
That would be me.
Well, I'm still 5 pounds overweight, or, just stuff like that, to where, you're talking about handing out, compliments and stuff earlier. Well, that's something that I definitely want to start trying to do more, because it is, and I haven't noticed it with people complimenting your kids, like, oh, you have great kids, and I do this all the time, and I hate that I do it in front of my kids, is you've got great kids, but like, yeah, you ain't send them at home,
right?
Yep. And that sort of thing, is, your kid sees that, and sees that, oh, Dad thinks I'm great in public, but not at home, and we don't think of it like that. We just have a hard time taking that compliment and just saying, yeah, they are pretty great, and so I think that's something that I definitely need to work on, because all the time, people are like, oh, I love your kids. It's like, yeah, well, you don't know them, so that's something that I definitely need to work on, is accepting that pat on the back, every now and then.
That's good, because I know that I'm like, I know that that's something that I struggle with as well. I'm glad you pointed it out, because I don't even know how to, I feel almost awkward when someone tells me, like, hey, you did a good job. Like, the proper response is be like, thank you. Like, I'm just like, okay, yeah.
How can I make this awkward?
And I hate bringing it back to social media, but that's what it is. It's, well, why don't you just go like my picture that I posted when I'm like this? Don't come up to me and tell me I'm skinny. Just like my picture, because we're taking that conversation piece out of it to where, oh yeah, so-and-so liked it, they saw me, and not, just having that conversation. And so, I don't know.
I think sometimes, like, probably for me, the biggest thing is, like, I've taken, not wanting to be prideful, like, whenever you're saying not be able to take a compliment or accept it, to almost to extreme, like, like, where I don't want to be seen as proud, so I can't even say the right thing whenever I get complimented.
Yeah,
Like you're
exactly.
like you're like, uh, okay, yeah, okay, just say thank you, or just be like, you know, it's okay to accept that. And that's something I've really started having to learn up here at the church. Like people will be just saying random stuff because people are ultimately, or you'll see a lot more kinder people here at the church than you will and anywhere else. They're just super nice. You walk in and everybody's saying hi to you, but you'll get compliments like you wouldn't normally get somewhere else, and it's just super awkward. It was super awkward for me for a long time because I was just like, I didn't want to be like, yeah, I did a good job, you know. So that's definitely been something hard for me as well. But I don't know. I just think taking if you can see those things like how you're mentioning those certain areas where I think there's a lot of sneaky pride in our hearts. I guess that's what I would say. Like there's places where we're prideful that we don't even know until like honestly like someone preaches a sermon or you mention it in conversation like we're having right now. Like you're like, man, I didn't even realize that was something that I'm having an actual problem with or struggling with, and then the Spirit speaks to you in this moment like, hey, you know, I heard this from Josh's message, like I am proud whenever I do something around the household and my wife doesn't say anything about it. You know, I am proud whenever I can't take a compliment, and that helps refine you. You know, that helps refine you and turn you into a more godly person, and not now I can't say godly person, but like following the Lord and following the examples of Jesus Christ better. So I have this scripture that I was going to end with. It says, "But Jesus called them together and said, 'You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people. The officials flaunt their authority over those under them, but among you it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" So, you know, ultimately, when I think about someone who had to lay down their pride, you think about Jesus Christ, and like think about and I get in awe whenever I do, because think about what Jesus Christ left. Like Jesus Christ came down to earth from heaven. You know, like the place where we long to get to, the place that we're wanting to go, and we believe in Jesus Christ that we're going to get there. But he came down ultimately knowing that what's going to happen to him, and the fact that he's going to humble himself to death so that everybody else, the ones who spit on him, the ones who beat him, the ones who crucified him, can have a chance of the redemptive power of him saving them. You know, so,
he's washing feet.
Yeah, he's
down
washing feet, and it makes me think of the parable, like whenever he's talking about the woman anointing him with the super expensive, basically like perfume. Makes me think she and everybody else is like, "What are you doing? That's like a year's of wages you're dumping on Jesus' head." And he's like, you know, y'all hold fast right now, because she's doing something great here, that she's actually basically celebrating me before I actually have to sacrifice my body on the cross. And they couldn't see it because what they were like, man, this is money that you just dumped on his head. But what she was actually doing was like, hey, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to humble myself to the point where I'm going to give you my most prized possession. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, from what I've seen, one of the hardest things I had to give to as I started coming to a relationship with Christ is my money. Like when I actually been like, you know, like whenever it's hard, like just to give an extra dollar over at the gas station or something, like whenever God puts it on your heart to give, I know that my pride made it super hard for me to do that, because I worked for that money. You know, like I did that. You know, that's how I used to think. Like I'm the one going out grinding each and every day to make that happen. And then I started realizing, after reading books and after listening to people like Tab and listening to Josh, Toby, and everybody else, that's actually what God has given me. It's not the other way around. You know, everything He gives me, you know, if you're a good steward with it, He's gonna bless you. So that's a good concept. Y'all got anything else that y'all like to add on it?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, this is another session wrapped up here with the upper room, and just man, I just hope that people in the church and the community enjoy, and if they have anything that you know, they would like to hear, or the church would like to hear us talk over, and maybe go into detail or in depth on, we'd love to have some topics come back on the YouTube channel or wherever it's getting put out on. So until next time, catch y'all later.